Hello everybody and welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review we're going to be continuing to take a look at the adventures of Bernice Summerfield and the Unbound Doctor in Doctor Who The New Adventures of Bernice Summerfield Volume 7 entitled Blood and Steel. It does of course feature Lisa Bowerman and David Warner in one of the best ever Doctor Who TARDIS teams. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website in multiple different formats, including physical CD and download, as well as being able to be purchased as part of a bundle alongside the other New Adventures of Bernice Summerfield releases. So the way this box set is formatted is really satisfying and is quite frankly a really addictive listen. So as per usual with this series we have 4 separate stories, however there is an overarching plot which interconnects all of the stories together to basically make one big 4-hour story. So all 4 episodes do their own separate things and it's basically a very strong series with some incredible talent writing this time around. You have some familiar names and some new names in there as well. So episode 1 is written by James Goss, episode 2 is written by Andrew Lamont, 3 is written by Rashana Patel, and the concluding story of this box set is written by Victoria Saxton. And within this review I am going to be referring to the episodes as episodes 1, 2, 3 and 4 because they all have German names and I'm dyslexic and I find it really difficult to say words that I'm unfamiliar with, so I'm just going to make it easier for myself, and yeah, I'm going to be naming them numerically this time round. However, it's quite nice and once again sets the style of this series due to all of the episodes being set within 1930s Berlin. Bernice and the Unbound Doctor arrive in 1930s Berlin, tracking down an unusual alien energy signature in the mists of the rise of the Nazis. As always, it's a joy seeing this team together once more, as their dynamic is frankly addictive to listen to. This box set also carries some emotional significance, as it's looking likely to be the last that we'll see of Benny and the Unbound Doctor together, due to the sad passing of David Warner not so long ago. But as always, their adventures shall live on, and I'm incredibly grateful that we were able to have this duo to start with. David Warner is an incredible actor and frankly I have really enjoyed listening to his adventures on Big Finish over the past few years, and when the news came in that he passed away a number of months ago, I was incredibly sad, and we have well and truly lost a brilliant Doctor, and generally from what I've heard a really brilliant person. I met him a few years ago and he was an absolute delight to meet. This series kicks off surprisingly quickly, introducing the Cybermen as using wasted resources of humanity and converting them into Cybermen. They see this as the most logical and effective outcome, and the Conformity Institute are about to make this a reality. Naturally, of course, the Cybermen are the foe within all 4 stories within this set, but as always, the Cybermen manage to be incredibly resourceful, picking away at the humans on planet Earth and the city of Berlin itself, being the forgotten and the homeless, making a rather bleak way to start off this series. David Warner wastes no time whatsoever in delivering an absolutely stellar performance, instantly reminding me as a listener of how brilliant this incarnation is. He is absolutely full of many witty one-liners, he loves a little bit of chaos, and above all, cares deeply about Benny. The ending act of this story in particular is superb. Warner is furious and yet still manages to add in a few quite dark jokes. Bernice is equally as lovely to listen to, and she's not particularly that happy about where the Doctor has landed the TARDIS within this set, being pre-rise of the Nazis, and the narrative throws in some rather interesting challenges for this character, which are then built upon throughout the rest of the series. For those of you that have been listening to Bernice Summerfield since the very beginning, I do believe that this box set is in fact a nice callback to some of the earlier Benny stories as well, as she's previously already visited this location. James Goss has really dedicated some time into digging into those gruesome details about Cyberman conversion. This draws out a lovely horror aspect to their creation, and the rather claustrophobic sound design really adds to this. The parallels between the Cybermen's ideals and the Nazi beliefs of seeking perfection also make the story setting incredibly logical. The compere is a great story-specific companion representing the bold Berlin nightlife from this time period and makes for an incredibly strong way to start off this box set. Episode 2, entitled Wolf, continues to explore the horror of Cybermen conversion and the emotional inhibitor, as a person travels home, but home life isn't what it used to be. This episode hit a rather significant tone for me, as I've been at university for quite a number of years, and on multiple occasions over the last few years, when you do eventually travel back to your roots, those little changes really stand out, and even if you try to hold on to some things, they still won't feel the same. This episode takes that, however, to the extreme, as we see someone returning home as a partially converted Cyberman. The emotional strain this has on their family is rather heartbreaking, but also over time, they manage to make things work. Benny, however, has reserved feelings, believing that the person is essentially a ticking time bomb that shall endanger the entire village when the cyber technology fully consumes their mind. The fact that all of this takes place once more in the shadow of the looming World War and the Nazi rise to power also really adds to this story's context. Sadly, this story is somewhat lacking of the Doctor himself, placing a lot of the focus on Benny and the Cyberman character, which makes the narrative rather personal, but it may have been nice to maybe see the Warner Doctor occasionally pop up here and there, simply just to see what Benny is up to. But that said, at the same time, it gives Lisa Bowerman the entire stage to basically command this story, and she does an excellent job as being the lead, as always. I think that as I write this review, I need to remind myself that this is not a Doctor Who adventure. This is the new adventures of Bernice Summerfield. She is the main protagonist and leads this story incredibly well. This episode is also a little bit of a twisted relationship story, with a girl who is no longer interested in the Cyberman character, and she has moved on in life. Episode 2 is definitely the slowest of this set, but I don't think that that is necessarily a bad thing, especially as we turn towards the later half of this series, which can in fact be rather heavy stories, plot and narrative-wise, and I think that having an episode like this so early on definitely works to this box set's benefit. From episode 2 onwards, I could already see that this box set is starting to take the form of an emotionally complex box set with focus on people rather than lots of fast-paced music and drama. To some, this may not be an ideal story style, but for me personally, I think it was what makes this Doctor and companion duo so special. With 4-part Big Finish box sets, I think that episode 3 is always the turning point, which essentially makes or breaks a box set into being a fairly average release or an incredible one. And episode 3 within this set continues to build on the so far incredibly strong plot arc that we've seen developed throughout episodes 1 and 2. I think that this story is perhaps the best representation of both the Doctor and Benny's relationship, as they share lots of scenes together, which for me as a listener I thought was really welcome. Both episodes 1 and 2 seen the characters doing their own thing, or with episode 2's case, we had the Doctor being mostly absent. So it's nice to see that episode 3 really celebrates this rich relationship. Benny continues to struggle throughout this story, as well as finding the overall setting of the imminent war and the rise of the Nazis rather unsettling. The Doctor, meanwhile, is his usual adventure-obsessed self, as he finds a rock within a museum with an inscription that the TARDIS cannot translate, which piques the Doctor's interest. This leads to the Doctor and Bernice Summerfield joining Professor Birdman's archaeological dig to find an ancient human habitation which proves their ideology of racial supremacy dates back to thousands of years. Despite the rather bleak setting of this story, I think Warner and Bowerman portray some excellently witty moments. Both characters know the other's weaknesses, but also acknowledge the other's strengths. At no point throughout this series does the companion role feel like a lesser assistant role to that of the Doctor. Yes, this incarnation is absolutely confident in his knowledge and intelligence, but parts of such intelligence also acknowledge how brilliant Bernice is at what she does. The fact that both Lisa and David are also close friends as well as colleagues really shines within this story, whilst also portraying a more vulnerable side to Bernice's character. A little bit of a spoiler ahead, but I do love the way that this story seems to start off as an episode that is separate from the overall plot, not being related to the Cybermen, and then as the story progresses, we soon find out that the Cybermen are still infiltrating 30s Berlin. The Cybermen are incredibly well written, and the final act certainly raises the stakes for this set. The Cybermen are strong, strategic, and have everyone exactly where they want them. For obvious reasons, I was really trying to savour each episode within this set to allow for maximum enjoyment, but the temptation to instantly dive into the final story after listening to this episode was incredibly strong, as the cliffhanger is superb. So here we go, the final episode of this set, and it concludes on an incredible high. The thing which really works about this story is that it's not overly dramatic and filled with action sequences. The Doctor and Bernice are separated in two very difficult situations, and the Doctor is held hostage in a club that we see portrayed within episode 1, giving the episode that lovely chilling sense of coming full circle and creating a lovely overall package. The Doctor must stand by as the audience gets converted into Cybermen one by one until the Doctor says no and lets the Cybermen win. This is done throughout a series of superbly villainous scenes, which are frankly horrific to listen to. The compare also returns within this story, and he is a very strong character. He's so nightmarish, he's the ringleader at the front of the Cybermen's regime. He torments the Doctor and draws out the gritty, awful aspects of Cybermen conversion, and really highlights how strong the Cybermen are as an actual creation, because I hate stories which use the Cybermen and basically reduce them down to just being mechanical robots. This episode really shines a light on the fact that these aren't just robots, these are people who have been upgraded, and as we see throughout the story, we see human characters beforehand and then they get converted into Cybermen, and the Doctor is seemingly helpless. It's really bleak, it's really gory, and it definitely sells this overall box set. This episode returns back to those darker elements of the Cybermen seen within the earlier Big Finish stories, the likes of Spare Parts. The series sees the Cybermen slowly infiltrate 30s Berlin in a way that does make them the focus of the series, but doesn't make it a repetitive Cybermen invasion story. If anything, it's like a 60s Doctor Who Cybermen serial meets gore and blood, and it could easily be adapted into like an 18+ black and white horror film. Victoria Saxton has fully embraced what the Cybermen are as a concept, and I absolutely love it. I think what says it all about David Warner's portrayal of the Doctor is that within the behind-the-scenes interviews, when he introduces himself and the character that he plays, he always says, "I play the Doctor for Bernice," and without a doubt, this story shows how their dynamic absolutely shines. This is a Doctor that has been shaped by the presence of Bernice Summerfield. They have gone on so many adventures together, and this story really tests their relationship, and if anything, is kind of feeling like the end of an era, and I think that's completely unintentional from the way this story has been designed, but the way the episode stands up as a progression in character from those very early episodes where we see this Doctor and companion interact together, and seeing how far they have came is incredibly rewarding to have been listening to this series from its very beginning, and again, it's just a delight. Both of these characters are so wonderful to listen to. My heart was constantly beating fast towards the end of this story. The stakes feel so scarily high, and again, due to this Doctor being from the Unbound universe, there is that sense of the unknown. Anything can happen, because this isn't the Doctor from our universe that we always know will get out of it in the end and win. Bowerman also perhaps gives one of her best performances in recent years, the sheer desperation in the hands of the Doctor, who may have finally lost. This concluding story has all of the makings of an end of an era regeneration story, as the Doctor is so worn down and done. Blood and Steel is without a doubt one of the strongest releases of 2022. So there we have it, the new adventures of Bernice Summerfield, Volume 7, entitled Blood and Steel. And what a box set it has been. I have really thoroughly enjoyed listening to this series. And if you do purchase it, I definitely recommend savouring it over a few days. Listen to a story, let the cliffhanger settle in, then listen to another, and so on. Because I think that this is one of those series that you really need to take time over in order to get into the characters' minds, understand the characters, and generally enjoy it, because ultimately this is a final chapter in an incredibly strong era at Big Finish, and one of which that personally I've really connected with. I've really enjoyed these adventures, especially the first volume where the David Warner Doctor and Benny first meet came out at a rather difficult point within my life, and when I first listened to it, I really enjoyed it, and it really let me escape to another universe entirely, I suppose, and open my eyes to a whole different potential of Doctor Who adventure. And I think this box set, if anything, returns to that sense of adventure that we've seen within that very first set. So as always, David Warner, Lisa Bowerman, it has been an absolute pleasure. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular Doctor Who content. Have a nice day, and I shall see you all next time.